I think that the world is becoming a very, very complex place, as we have seen. And for countries like Serbia, small countries, and also countries that are kind of in between two worlds of East and West, what we are trying to do is to really just mind our own business, focus on our development and our changes, and improve the quality of life of our citizens. In that respect, in this kind of struggle and the political struggle and the trade wars between different countries, and we can see the trade war between the United States and Europe, United States and China, Europe and the United States, Europe and China, we are really trying to very carefully balance, not politically, but really balance in order not to be, as I say, not to at any point in time be a proxy in these worldwide struggles. And I say many, many times, whenever you are living in these complex times, you don't want to be kind of the grass on which the elephants are fighting. And so we are really trying also through regional stability to pull us out of that kind of challenges. On digital, I would say that obviously, I mean, it's a trend that is changing the world with this whole fourth industrial revolution as we know it. I personally, although there are many, many challenges coming with digitalization, I see it as a huge opportunities for countries like Serbia for several reasons, and I'll try to be brief. Firstly, now is the time for countries that were not the winners of the third industrial revolution or previous industrial revolutions to catch up, jump a few steps, and try to position themselves better. Secondly, there is finally advantage that I see for smaller countries. Like in the economy, if you look at kind of big, huge multinational corporations, and smaller startup businesses or small companies, smaller companies find it easier to change. They're more flexible. They can be more dynamic if they're dedicated to it. So in the time of the Industrial Revolution, whatever that may be, it's easier for small countries to change and adapt and become the leaders. And finally, I think now is the time for something that has been, throughout the past 3 to 4 decades, one of our key disadvantages is constant changes, lack of strong institutions, disruption. We can finally turn this into our advantage now. Because if you ask more developed economies, more institutionally strong societies, what is the biggest threat they see from the fourth industrial revolution? They see it's disruption. It's the fact that you don't know what to expect tomorrow or in a week or in 10 days. And for us, we are used to living under these circumstances. We are adaptable, fast-changing, creative in that sense of the word. So disruption is something that is finally our advantage and the disadvantage of others. So I think if we are well positioned, very smart, although with all of these challenges, I think we can turn out to be one of the winners of the fourth industrial revolution. And politics-wise, we will have to see how these things change, but from where I stand, I hope that there will be more dialogue instead of more protectionism in the world. Firstly, I think that the whole digitization is completely changing the politics and the governance as we know it. And we have seen this through social media, and especially Twitter, and especially with President Trump, who has basically set up a completely new standard of Twitter politics and basically announcing some of the key strategic decisions, firstly on Twitter. And now, that's the trend that, after all, we need to follow. The social media is also changing the dynamics between citizens and politicians. We are becoming much more approachable. You can easily read what people think of your work, of some of the policies. People can easily complain to you, raise some of their specific issues. And at least for me, it is very difficult to just reject that and not act on it. Obviously, one of the key issues there, as Professor has said, is this huge problem with fake news. And so there, I think, all of us will have to find a way of, in the future, of how to deal with that. And I think, again, that education is basically the cornerstone of where should we start that battle with the fake news, learning from countries like Finland. And, you know, as of 1st of September this year, we are introducing a subject called digital world in the first grade of the primary school, so that kids can really see, you know, understand the world that they're living in, understand its challenging opportunities, and so on and so forth. So I think that in general, everything is changed. The economy is changed, the politics is changed, the governing is changed, and I think that contributes at the same time, while it contributes to greater democracy, it also is challenging some of the key things of what does it mean to democratic society, through the fact that we have multiple truths in today's world. And so I think, at least for responsible politicians, governing has never been as hard as today. It's a very complex question, because when we talk about the infrastructure which is supposed to sustain and support this transformation, we, in my view, talk about the infrastructure that we need to introduce the e-government and m-government. We need the infrastructure in terms of digital roads, like broadband infrastructure. We need educational infrastructure to really just increase the number of startup innovation companies, provide for an ecosystems which will encourage people to participate in this transformation and provide opportunities. We have done a lot in the past 3 years on all of these fronts and all of these aspects. In terms of e-government, I have to say that we have set up, together with Telekom Serbia, the government data center, and we have started building another kind of backup and disaster recovery big state-of-the-art data center in Kragujevac. So we'll have a full infrastructure for e-government ready by the end of 2020. In terms of broadband infrastructure, Serbia is quite well positioned. We have about 60% of our inhabitants covered by the broadband infrastructure. For the remaining 30%, by the end of March, we will have a call for mid-mile capex subventions, so to introduce broadband to the remaining 30% of the population, focusing primarily on 600 local communities, 90,000 households, and we also hope that will again work to solve the internal migration problem in Serbia. In terms of the educational infrastructure, by the end of 2020, we will have as much as 4 science and technology parks. That's basically the best, by far the best, not just in the region in terms of the Western Balkans, but South and Eastern Europe. We are investing over 100 million euros into infrastructure for research and development, science, scientific institutes, and all of these things, to really just enable for a condition so that whoever has a good idea, with the support from the Innovation Fund, the Science Fund, can actually change our economy and our society together. And I did not answer to important part of your previous question. Open data when we adopted the e-government law in 2018, we have made opening of the data mandatory. We are still struggling with that. We can check on the open data portal to what extent we have opened, and the state institutions, ministries, local governments are slowly opening the data. So that is something that I think is one of the key ingredients of the transformation of the society. So I think that now, after really just focusing on this, introducing also programming and coding as mandatory subjects in the primary schools and so on and so forth, we are now today really well positioned to really see a very good results and the key transformation in 2020, 2021, 2022. I think that, and I'm very proud to say this, that the people in Serbia have accepted digitalization much more quickly, much more efficiently, and much more readily than I initially expected. If we go back to 2017, when I became the Prime Minister, and in my expose, in my manifesto, digitalization was basically the key concept and the highest priority of the government that I lead, I think very few people really understood, and many people laughed and did not see Serbia in that respect. If you ask people now, and I've seen some of the opinion polls, really majority of the people in Serbia perceive digitalization as our unique opportunity for the future growth, development, a chance to catch up. Now, even the older population in Serbia has acknowledged what it means and what benefit brings the digitalization of public services, that is introduction of e-government. And I'll tell you, for example, one single service that has really explained to especially senior citizens what is digitalization all about and what it brings to them was e-prescriptions, e-recept. Now, they then understood that digitalization to them means that they do not have to go back every 3 weeks to their GP so that they can, wait in line, and GP wastes her time to write a prescription for the same medicine that they're taking for 2 years. That this is all automatic now. It's not waste of their time. They don't have to go back to the hospital, to their GP and do this. I think many younger people today, 3 days into us introducing e-government, and we are still at the very beginning. We've really just for these past 3 years, we're setting up just the foundations, the databases, the data, and in parallel started to introduce some of the e-government services so that the citizens and businesses cannot wait. But today, if you ask someone who's 20, 22 years old about, is it very difficult to get this birth registry certificate, they would think you're crazy, because it's not needed anymore. And if it is needed, then they go to the e-government portal and just order it online, and they get it to their home address. So for us, 4 years ago, getting the birth certificate was like hell. It was a nightmare. It meant waste of time, going through public administration, waiting in lines. It meant hell. So the country is, in my view, changing faster than I anticipated, which again means that we are used to disruption, and we are adapting really well. In terms of the campaign, all of the campaigns that we are doing are kind of explaining to people, sometimes in kind of funny ways, what digitalization is perceived as, flying cars or microwave pizzas and stuff. But if we can't do this, at least know that we've done all of these other things, and this is where we are going. So I think that this is, again, I'm satisfied because, again, I think that broadly our citizens understood, and I think that as a country, as a society, I think we are talking more about digital than most of the other countries in the world, and I'm very, very happy because of that, and that will certainly bring us results. 2 points. Firstly, again, as of 2015, 2016, when Serbia was hit hard by the migrant crisis, and we dealt with it extremely well. We've kind of protected the borders from illegal immigrants, let the legal or registered migrants in, and showed like a very human face. Also opened the schools to migrant children, which was unique, I think, almost in Europe. And I'm very proud with how Serbia handled that. But since that time, we've called on the EU to discuss and adopt a common European policy on migration. So not EU policy, because countries like Serbia have an issue because these migrants are coming to Serbia from the EU countries, going further into the EU countries. So common European migration policy. Unfortunately, that did not happen, never happened, and it seems to me that this current crisis has again almost surprised Europe. Now, we will have, and we have kind of almost daily communication with our neighbors to discuss the common approach to this. Frontex is going to play a major role. I'm going to have a meeting with my team on Friday morning to see how we are going to protect our borders, but more importantly, I think how all of us will support EU borders where it matters. And so, I think that unfortunately, right now, again, it's probably not realistic to count on a common European migration policy, apart from what's happening now, which is good, a common border protection, what it matters, and that's basically Greece. One of the big things, as Professor said, that we did not even see yet is the migration because of the climate change, which is going to be, in my view, even bigger issue than current reasons for migration. If you see, for example, South Africa, Cape Town is the first world major city that has run out of the water, climate change. So it's going to be huge. But when we are discussing the climate change and environmental policies, I've rarely seen people talk about e-government as a way to... We've seen the energy transition, which is obviously important. But Serbia, tiny Serbia, has introduced automatic exchange of information between public administration. I remember on 1st of June 2017, I remember the date because I was really very proud that we've started this system. As of 1st of June 2017, and not everyone has immediately joined the system, so it happened gradually. As of 1st of June 2017 to beginning of this month, we have, as public administration, including local governments, exchanged over 100 million information automatically, electronically, meaning that we did not print over 100 million papers, A4 papers, documents. Meaning, and I've asked our Office for IT and e-Government to basically transform that into trees and water and electricity needed to produce that paper, meaning that tiny Serbia, from e-government to date, and we are at the very beginning, has saved about 10,500 trees and about, if I'm not mistaken, 22 million liters of water to produce that paper. Can you imagine if the entire world would go digital in terms of governments, what kind of impact that would have on the climate change? So I think that that's a big opportunity where, again, digital can really help us impact the environment and then prevent the huge climate change from happening and then prevent from further migration and so on and so forth.